Hey everybody, it's John and Troy with the Paranormal Task Force back at you with another episode of Task Force Talk.
Episode 3. We've made it
Episode
3
3.
episodes.
Yeah,
I mean, no, I don't think anyone thought we weren't going to make it 3 episodes, but hey, here we are.
we
Like
are back.
super on schedule too. I love it. So today is pretty straightforward. What we're going to go through is more or less just the pros and cons of paranormal investigating from at least, our perspective, because that's all we can offer you right now. But
True.
Um, I think there's some pretty general stuff that people are going to expect us to say here. I actually haven't really taken a look at the list yet, but Dad was kind enough to compile a list of some of the pros and cons for us, and we're going to go over
Yeah.
that. We're going to offer our perspective on it. Quick, easy, to the point.
So we want to start with pros or cons?
Let's start positive. I think it's always good to get everything going on a positive note, because I know how you and I are. We're gonna get to the cons and we're gonna have a lot to say.
Well, we might have a lot to say on the pros too.
Given that this is paranormal investigating, yeah, I think we'll have a lot to say on pros because we love this.
But well, the first pro that I put on the list was adrenaline rush and excitement.
Oh, that's for sure true. I'm gonna dive straight into that, sink my teeth right into it.
Go ahead.
You never really get a feeling like being told you're not safe. I'm gonna go full Uncle Chris mode here about blowing on my ear and whatnot, and just say that, like, if you watch the episode, you can see that is a very genuine reaction to "you're not safe." I'm not
Yeah.
playing it up for the camera. Like, if some dude walks up to me on the street and says "you're not safe," yeah, I'm gonna sit there and be like, but it's a whole other thing when something you cannot see is telling you you're not safe. Like, that's not cool, dude. Except it's really cool. It's good for the content.
Yeah. I think in general, just when things are happening around you in a haunted location, it's just that natural adrenaline rush. It's exciting. I mean, that's why we react the way we do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I compare it, you have people that love roller coasters for the adrenaline rush.
Oh,
Um,
I'm one of those people. I am people.
yeah, and I think that when you're at a location and it's a known haunted location and you're there and you're the only people there and stuff starts happening,
Man,
it
even when
definitely shoots the adrenaline up.
dude, we're not the only people on the Queen Mary. It wasn't as busy as it could have been, but
Right.
even like even knowing there's other people on the ship, you start doing this kind of stuff. Like the isolation ward, when we were down there, or when I was down there, I was alone. Just that factor of being by yourself is a whole other ball game of, like, it's creepy, but like Dad said, it's definitely an adrenaline rush. Like,
Yeah. Well, and I think too that I get a lot of questions from people, don't we get scared at these locations? Aren't we scared to go into these locations? And that's when I explain to people the adrenaline rush you get from this activity happening, I think keeps you from being scared because it's like you're excited that you're getting this stuff happening.
I
So
I think a very classic John reaction is, especially since we've had the Devil's Toy box. Every time it closes, we get a very good "oh" out of
yeah.
Dad, and I think that in and of itself is very telling about how we feel about that kind of adrenaline rush. Like
Well,
the
I mean, yeah. I mean, what else? How else are you supposed to react?
Well, I think the Devil's Toy box is a really good one because, like, the REM pods, I don't want to say we become desensitized to it because we still react to it, but the REM pod beeps, it's kind of loud, but the Devil's Toy box, that thing just slams shut, and then you're like, whoa,
Out
you
of
know?
nowhere.
One of my favorites is on the Halloween live. We had it next to poor Uncle Chris, and every time it would shut, he's sitting there like, huh.
So that was our number one pro. Now the second pro I have listed is exploring history. And I know myself, I'm a history buff. I love history. So getting to go into these historic locations that have so much history behind them and being able to just be there. And I think you even heard me say it on the Queen Mary episode that aside from the paranormal standpoint, just the history of this location, it's just amazing being there in the, with this history.
Right.
So I think, exploring history is another pro.
I mean, totally not paranormal related, but one of my favorite vacations I can remember, I was a little kid and I came to visit you back when you guys lived in Virginia,
Hmm.
and we drove up through the snow to go to DC, and
Yeah.
that was really cool, got to see all kinds of stuff that like I'd seen in history textbooks,
Hmm.
pictures on the internet. So actually like being there in person was super, super cool. Going to all the memorials, like the Vietnam Memorial, Lincoln Memorial. I don't think did we went to a museum while we were out there. You remember?
Yeah. I don't remember which one it was though.
I don't
There's a
remember which
bunch of them
museum it
right
was
there.
either. I just remember it was really cool. And then you got me that replica of the Declaration.
Yeah.
I've got it. It's somewhere in it's on the wall back there somewhere. I got a lot of junk, but um
Um, so yeah, exploring history is definitely a pro to this. If you like history, I mean, being able to be there in these locations, it's a feeling unto itself, aside from, you know, doing the ghost hunting part of it.
right. Like I think most of the locations we've gone to already have a very rich history behind them. The Queen Mary being a very obvious one, but then if you want something maybe like a little bit smaller, Mackey Mansion
Yeah.
has its own crazy history.
There's a lot of history there. Yeah, I mean, you're
Absolutely.
talking these
Yeah.
locations that have been here for, some of them hundreds of years.
Right. Yeah. And then,
Uh,
you guys did Nevada State Prison. There's a lot of history there
sh-
too.
that place is wild.
Dialing it back to our very first investigation, the Hornet has a buttload of history behind it.
Yeah.
Like, um, I remember there was this game that I played back like way early Xbox 360. It was called like Battle Stations Midway or something, which obviously talks about Midway and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And I remember at one point, you get to control all the different ships, and I see USS Hornet, and I'm like, wait, hold up, what?
Yeah. I mean, the Hornet was, yeah, that's a location different than anything that we've done.
Yeah,
Um,
you could say that again.
let's see.
Hit us with a con, Dad. Hit us with a con. Let's get
Yeah. All
negative.
right. You want to go to cons?
I Let's
So,
balance it out.
all right. So the first con I have on the list is um the lack of concrete evidence. And the reason I put that on here is because there really is no science behind the paranormal. We're all out here still trying to get this evidence, and nobody can say for sure if it's concrete evidence because who's to say that just because a device goes off that it's definitely paranormal. um you kind of have to rely on your instincts, your feelings in the location when these devices are going off. And you as an investigator, you may believe that it is definitely paranormal because there's no other explanation, but there's no way to definitively say 100% that it is paranormal. So that would be a con because we go out here, we go to these locations, we get all this evidence, and I have no doubt what I feel like is happening. Um, but there's no scientific way to prove that it is paranormal evidence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100% that makes sense. This may not be playing into the con side of that necessarily, but when we went to the Hornet, I had said going into it, like I was very skeptical. I like
Mhm.
what is really going to happen that's going to make me really definitively say, okay, yeah, this place is haunted, right? And it was the point at which I could no longer logically explain the things that I was seeing or things that were happening that I was like, okay, yeah, this place is really haunted. But in that same vein, a lot of the things that I could not logically explain, I also could not scientifically prove was something paranormal. But that's the thing. I can neither definitively say, "Oh yeah, this is definitely ghosts," but I also can't logically with my science mind say, "Yeah, this is why that happened."
Well, and that actually rolls right into the second con that I put down, which is skepticism and criticism.
Yeah.
There's a stigma attached to the paranormal field. Us as investigators, I mean, we're often met with skepticism, or some people even ridicule us for doing what we do because they think that we're just, nutballs, or that this stuff isn't real. And so to me, that's a con. I mean, our whole goal with what we do is to have a better understanding of the paranormal, and to kind of try to prove that this stuff is really happening. And just like yourself, you were a skeptic, and now you're a believer. Um, and that's the goal of what we do. I mean, can we scientifically say, hey, this is, definitely a ghost? No. But we can go get the evidence and let people make up their own mind as to what they're seeing.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think at the end of the day, that's always kind of going to be how it is.
yeah. I
I'm not going to
mean,
say people are only going to believe what they want to believe, but
well,
we can
if you
only provide the evidence that
right.
we find. Like,
Well, if you think back to the days of Ed and Lorraine Warren, I mean, they were looked at as nut jobs, but they're the main reason. They were the pioneers of this, that got us. Everybody that investigates pretty much is doing this because of what Ed and Lorraine Warren brought forth.
well, yeah,
And
we all owe them a debt.
yeah. So I mean, the skepticism and the criticism, it comes along with it. I mean, we get comments from people, oh, you guys are crazy, or you're wasting your time, the
We get
paranormal
comments
isn't
from
real.
dude, we get comments from family telling
Yeah.
us that we're crazy.
Yeah. So I
Like,
mean, it is what it is, but guess what, we enjoy it, and we have a passion for it, and I think we have caught some really compelling evidence.
right.
So
Like, I think we continue to catch really compelling evidence. And at the end of the day, well, actually, I wanted to talk about your nut job point real quick.
yeah.
I think you have to be at least a little bit nutty and a little bit crazy to do this. I think most of the people that do are all have don't have it all quite up here. We all have a couple of screws loose because, well, I mean, seriously, who says, "Oh, this house or this hotel or something has the ghosts of dead people wandering around and potentially some really bad spirits that may try to harm you in some fashion. Cool, let's go do it." We do. We say, "Yeah, cool, let's go do it."
All the
But
time.
that's like that tells me we aren't necessarily all right there,
Well, again, it's going back to the first pro. It's the thrill of the hunt, the
Yeah.
adrenaline rush. So, um, but yeah, I think the skepticism and criticism is something that can be kind of diminishing, but at the same time, if you're somebody that doesn't believe, that's fine. Don't believe. But you don't have to necessarily bash on people that do believe and that are out there trying to get this evidence to prove what they believe in.
Dude, it's 2025. That's a huge ask.
Well, I know. I'm not asking anybody. I'm just saying. I mean, you can be a skeptic if you want, but that doesn't mean you got to search out people to, negatively comment on their videos or posts or whatever. Like, if you think we're wasting our time, then go about your day. Don't watch it,
See, I'm still a firm believer that you're not truly successful until you have haters.
Oh, I agree. And it is what it is, but that's just one of the cons. Um so let's see. So we've covered 2 pros and 2 cons.
Let's get
We
back to
want
the positives.
Let's go back to the pros. So the third pro that I had listed is community and connection. And what I mean by that is, as a paranormal group, when we go out and do these investigations, it really helps us form a strong bond with one another, because we really are relying on each other during these investigations. One, to stay safe. I mean, some of these places we go in aren't necessarily the safest buildings. But also because we know what we're there for, and we know what we believe in, and it just fosters a stronger bond amongst the team members. So that's what I had as number 3. Plus, with community, as we grow in this community, it helps foster relationships with other paranormal teams. So it becomes a whole community atmosphere. And not to mention the people we meet that run the locations and stuff like that. I think the relationships that are built through doing this are incredible.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'm just gonna kind of go back in order of what you said and corroborate, but I think, as far as our bonding as a team, you, me, and Uncle Chris, like, I think it's great. One of my favorite things is when we do the trip out to a location, the drive,
Yeah.
and it's 3 peas in a pod, man. You got 3 idiots in a car together.
Well,
Sometimes,
we get to have fun together,
yeah,
and
exactly. And I think that's important, because at the end of the day, you're my dad, he's my uncle. And like, when I do get to see you guys, it's usually for this, but
yeah,
it's a good excuse to get together. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, it's a really good excuse to get together. Um, but I mean, as far as like the community stuff goes, like, I know technically speaking, we've only really done one collaboration, but even that
Right.
one super impromptu collaboration was some real kind of like will of God type stuff.
Right.
Like, with the way it all came together, literally just dad, me sitting there on the couch with Queen Mary, just, and then he's like, "Hey, I heard somebody say something about ghosts outside. I must go see who it is." And then bing, bang, boom, Carly, Tamara, and Tiffany. And we investigated with them for like what, the next 6 hours or something.
Yeah, I believe they were with us for like 6 hours.
And that, in my mind, is still one of our best investigations. Like, we,
And and look, I mean, it formed a relationship. I mean, I had Tiffany back with us on El Cortez.
which you can watch the first 2
Yeah, the
episodes
third
of
episode
on
is
YouTube
dropping
right now.
Saturday.
And the 3rd episode is premiering this Saturday at
Yeah,
5 p.m. Pacific.
that's
All right,
right.
that's my plug for the day. Probably.
So, but yeah, so I mean, the bond and the friendships that can be made doing this, it's great, and that's a very big pro.
Yeah.
Um,
I wanted to, because you mentioned all the people that run the locations as well. I think
yes.
we've run into some great people just going to the locations.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I think just, I haven't been to a single location yet that the people that run it have been anything but super welcoming and just really awesome. Definitely want to shout out Don and Halen over at Mackey Mansion.
Yeah.
They are super fun. Love that location. If you get the
Yeah.
chance, definitely go there. Even if you just go for the day
The
tour,
day tour, yeah.
like, yeah, the day tour was great. And like I seriously, staying overnight at Mackey Mansion was that was an experience.
Yeah, it was.
Well,
For
by
sure.
the time we left, like it was daybreak already. The sun was coming up.
Yeah.
I remember you pulled the car around and we were loading out equipment. The worst part about Mackey Mansion was making sure somebody, after we loaded everything out, had to go back in and make sure the doors were locked. And of course, the task force favorite guinea pig had to go back into Mackey Mansion all by himself. Dude, that place is so creepy.
After all the stuff we had happen, Troy had to go back in, lock the door, and walk through the bottom floor to get out the other side.
Yeah, so I had to go. So it's like 3 floors, right? There's the bottom floor, the middle floor, which is where you see a lot of the investigation because that's where the parlor and the mining office are, and then the upstairs. Luckily, I didn't have to go back upstairs because I would not be doing that. But I did have to go all the way back through the parlor, past a little post-mortem picture of the maid,
Harriet.
and then down the super steep stairs so that I could go out the back door. And I was just like, I'm like, please, no.
And he did it in 0.5 seconds. So you know he was
record time. If I could have slid down the banister, I would. Would have looked like Ferris Bueller.
Oh man. Yeah, that was great.
Geez.
Well, the next pro that I have on the list is Pursuit of the Unknown. And you know, there's something deeply human about trying to answer some of life's biggest questions, right?
What happens when we die?
Yeah, what happens after we die? Are we alone? You know, and by investigating, like we're tapping into that curiosity. We're trying to answer those questions, right? So, that's pretty exciting in itself because I mean, we really are. We're trying to find out, you know, what happens after we die. You know, are we alone? Are you know, these spirits that we're coming in contact with, do they know there's other spirits around? Like, you know what I mean? Like I find that very interesting and intriguing.
I'm going to sound like I really got my tinfoil hat on. And this, like, because you asked, are we alone, right? Now, from a paranormal perspective, no, of course we're not alone.
Right.
Now, I can't definitively prove that to anyone right this second, but this is what we do, you know? This is why we're going to wherever it is we go next to go show, hey, look, not alone. We might be the only 2 in the house, but we're not alone. But my tinfoil hat was the universe is very vast. There is something out there besides humanity. Aliens exist. Shout outs to Tom DeLonge, baby. Blink 182. But anyway, dialing it back to where we're supposed to be at. Yeah, I think trying to prove that there is something after death is one of the big things for me because that's been a curiosity as long as I can remember, which is really weird to think about because like maybe I just don't understand kids all that well, but in my mind I'm like, what kind of kid thinks about where we go when we die, you know?
Believe it or not, that's a question that a lot of kids ask.
That right there gives me more questions than answers, but I think just the idea that there is, you know, the world just doesn't stop, like you just cease to exist after that point. I don't know if it's necessarily like a sense of comfort type thing in knowing that or what, but I do think it's supremely interesting.
Yeah.
And also the amount of factors that can play into that too, you know what I mean? Like how do we end up with good spirits? How do we end up with bad spirits? How does a spirit become a spirit instead of just like, you know, in a hypothetical sense of, you know, the afterlife and heaven in the conventional sense? Why are they still here? Why are they not moving on? You know?
Right. Yep. Yeah, and that's again, I think that's a pro when it comes to this because we're trying to answer those questions.
Well, like you said, pursuit of the unknown is very deeply human. Like taking it
Mhm.
outside of paranormal investigating, I think part of the reason people go and look for, lost artifacts or, things like the Titanic and they go to see it is the pursuit of the unknown.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, it's very human.
So, all right. So I have one more pro on the list. Do we want to get to that before we go back to the cons?
No, let's save that for later. Let's go back to the
Okay.
cons.
So, moving back to the cons, the next con that I have on the list, number 3, which probably should have been number 1 if I was going in order, emotional drain. For those that have never done this, it is very mentally and emotionally taxing. You're spending time in the dark in emotionally charged locations, um, especially in locations where tragedy has occurred. Um, and we've talked about this before, the types of hours that you're doing this. It's very, very taxing, both mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Okay, there it is.
You know,
I was waiting.
yeah. I mean, physically too. Like, I mean, look at the Hornet. That's a physically taxing location to get around.
It's
Um,
it's massive.
yeah. It's like I said, it's yeah. But the emotional drain side of it is big because, and I think I referred to it last week. Some people call it paranormal hangover or whatever.
Right.
Um, and it's not just being exhausted from being tired. It's the emotional drain. It's the mental toll that these locations take on you. Um, I just, yeah, that's a con for me. Um, I love doing this, but you know, the drain you feel afterwards it takes a while to get over.
I mean, I think that's part of the reason why very rarely will we go like back to back to back on investigations and stuff, just because it really is, there is a recovery period involved,
Yeah.
like
And I mean, me and Chris did several locations back to back to back, and trust me, it was rough. It was
yeah,
rough.
I remember probably about 2 locations in, I called you after work. I was like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And you were just like, "Ah."
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were having a time. I think you got some good footage, but you guys were having a time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does get taxing, and there are, some cases where we do locations back to back, depending on where the locations are and if it makes sense. Um, but we try to spread out the investigations a little bit so we can recover.
Right.
But yeah,
Well,
I think the drain is probably, for me anyway, the drain of investigating is probably the worst part.
to your point about the recovery though, the recovery period is extremely necessary too, because when we go into locations, especially locations with very known um like potentially dangerous hauntings, definitely, like bad spirit type energy, or just, as loath as I am to say it, like demonic type stuff, you can't go in there drained,
Right.
because you open yourself up to a world of really bad stuff when you're not going into an investigation with the right mindset. And I think some people look at me and go, "You're nuts," or "You're stupid," or both. But the mental factor is huge there,
Yeah.
because I think, by the time you guys got up to the prison, I think you guys had quite a bit of travel. And by the time you actually got attacked in the prison, you guys had been in there, you'd been wandering around, you were definitely tired. I think you were pretty well drained, and that's when you got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that was towards the end of the night.
Yeah, it's towards the
Oh,
end of that whole series. It's in the last
yeah.
episode.
Yeah, so that was towards the end of the night. So yeah, I was beat at that point.
And look, just hear me out because I know how much you love the clip of the Black Mist. This is big theory crafting hours, big theory crafting. But one thing that struck me is how the mist almost looks like it's leaving from where you are.
Well, no, and that's what I've said. Because that video of the mist was captured by my camera, which was sitting on the table we were sitting at.
Right.
And
And it was
it
sitting right
literally
next to you.
comes, yeah, it literally comes right from where I was sitting.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
yeah,
that was
yeah,
right after you were attacked. You guys only went
right.
outside because you were like, hey, tap him out. I have to get outside.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've always said that. I think whatever that black mist was is what was attacking me in the culinary building.
Yep.
So, but the next con,
Is getting attacked.
yeah, the next one I have, well, it could be part of it, safety risks.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when we investigate, a lot of these buildings are old. We're in, you know, dark spaces, possibly unstable structures. Um, and all of that can pose physical hazards, um plus, like we were saying, uh things like the what we just talked about at the prison. Maybe, maybe you get too close to something that you can't explain, and it takes advantage of your energy drain and tries to, attack you or overtake you or whatever. But safety risks to me that's another big con, because you got to remember, some of these places are super old, and while they try to keep them up, it doesn't mean that they're not still unstable. Or not only that, but again, you're in a dark environment. Falling down stairs is a real hazard.
Since he brought up falling downstairs, um, the Hornet stairs are basically ladders, and with the
Yeah.
kind of equipment we were trying to lug around and stuff, like there were several times where I was like, I am about to fall, like either flat on my behind or on my head, which
Yeah.
would have been a very quick end to the investigation. And I know that we talk about the physically taxing nature of the Hornet all the time. I just want to throw this out there. I love the Hornet. I would
Mhm.
definitely do it again.
Yeah.
And I think everybody who can should.
Give us an elevator.
Yeah, right. They're gonna install an elevator on the historical battleship. Okay. No, but seriously, like it's an incredibly cool location. So as much as I bring it up as a con, like I think the only problem with the Hornet is that it's very difficult to get around. Because the other thing too is when you have to go through the bulkheads to get
Yeah.
anywhere, you gotta like high step it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
Like,
what I'm saying. And that in the dark, I mean, the trip hazards, like I said, navigating stairs, and even at St. Albans, that place
yeah.
is pitch black. And everywhere you go in that place, you're going up and down stairs.
I mean,
So,
I think one of the things that our videos don't necessarily give the full, I guess, I don't know, depth of is how dark the locations are
yeah.
when we're actually in them, because we have lights on the cameras or we have night vision. So, like, we do that to make sure that people can see what's in the video, but to the actual eyes, you can't see squat. I can't see this far in front of my face when
Yeah.
we're in those places.
Well, even with the lights on the cameras, you can't really see, you know, 3 or 4 feet in front of you.
No.
So it's yeah, it's there's definitely a lot of safety risks that come with it. And um
Before we move on, let's talk about the actual paranormal safety risks, because I feel like we talked about tripping hazards and stuff,
mhm,
but I think one of my biggest fears of going to certain locations is developing any kind of attachment or some kind of possession, And
yeah.
while those things don't always happen, obviously, that's the thing that I'm like, that's the one thing I really hope never does.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a risk that we take.
Absolutely, it's a risk we take. Do it for the content, but
You know,
still.
that's why there's ways of that's why we take, you know, means to protect ourselves before and after an investigation. Because yeah, it's definitely a risk. And even with it, like I said, even if you're a skeptic and you don't think this stuff is real, um, why would you not take precautions to keep something like that happening? You know what I mean? If you even had an inkling that it's a possibility. So,
I the best way I can say it is like when you ride a bike, you wear a helmet, right? Because you probably won't fall, but in that chance you do, you want to protect your noggin. So
right.
I think it's the same kind of deal. You just want to make sure that you are as protected as possible from any kind of potential evil entity that might want to harm you.
For sure.
Like,
So,
I,
I got I've got one more con. I think we'll cover that before we cover the last pro.
yeah, end it on a positive note. I think that's good.
And the last con I have is expensive gear. The
Can I loop something into that?
Yeah.
The investigations are expensive too. It's not just the gear. The locations
Yeah.
and travel are very expensive.
Yeah, well that's yeah, basically the entire cost of doing this is not cheap. I mean the gear when you factor in cameras, audio recorders, you know, music boxes, you know, all the gear that we use. I mean, it's not cheap. We don't use cheap gear.
I mean,
And
you want to talk about the money isn't the only expense either. It is very time consuming.
yes. Yeah, the time, the money, the like you were saying, the locations, each location costs money. Um, you know, I mean, there's just yeah, it gets expensive, you know, which is why a lot of people that want to do this don't do it because they just don't have the means of starting doing this, you know. And yeah, that's definitely a con. But with that, like we were talking about locations, I mean, the way these locations remain functional and maintained is by people like us paying money to go to these locations.
Right.
So you know, it's not to bash any locations. I get it. They've got to make money because they have to maintain the location.
I mean,
Um,
we are in no way saying that like the location fees and stuff are not totally worth it.
no, not
Eh,
at all.
like you can almost consider it a donation. You just get
Yep.
something out of it and that you get to actually go in the space and more or less have free reign of it so that you
Hmm.
can try to find evidence. And
Yep.
aside from that, you said like a lot of people that kind of want to get into this end up getting kind of hung up because just the means aren't there.
Hmm.
Um, for anyone who does see this or listens to it and really kind of wants to at least give it a shot, almost all the locations we've been to, in some way, shape, or form, will offer like it still costs money, but they'll offer some kind of like nighttime tour or
Right.
something of the sort where
Or or they call them public ghost hunts.
right. And
Um,
they'll provide you some pretty basic equipment, but it's
mhm.
equipment nonetheless. It's usually in small groups. It's definitely cheaper than and renting a place for the actual investigation would be, but it gives you a good taste of what you can get out of this kind of thing. And if you're on the fence or just you think, hey, I want to do this, it's a great way to dip your toes into it. So I would
Definitely.
definitely say that's a good thing to do.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, a public ghost hunt is a good way to kind of get your feet wet and see what you're getting into. Now, when you do it the way we do it, you know, we're paying the location, so we have the location to ourselves. Um, but you know, there's nothing wrong with going on a public ghost hunt just because you know you want to experience what it's like to do a ghost hunt. Um, Now, are they going to have you know some of the more advanced equipment that we no? They're probably going to have some basic equipment, but you'll get that experience, and it'll help you decide, is this something I want to invest more money in and start doing myself, or do I want to stick to public hunts because I have people around me and I'm not, it's not quite as taxing, I guess, because the hours aren't as long. Um, and you have a guide that's taking you
It's not as
through.
financially taxing either.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I think there's also an advantage to doing a public hunt just in the fact that there's going to be more people, which
mhm,
means potentially more people for the spirits to interact with. So you
mhm.
never know. Like anytime this kind of stuff happens, there's the potential for something really crazy. Like
Yeah.
again, going back to the Queen Mary, if we hadn't run into Carly, Tamara, and Tiffany, we would have missed out on some crazy evidence because you didn't get scratched. I didn't get scratched.
Right.
Tamara sure did.
Yeah, she did. That was crazy.
That I'm telling you, that might be, I don't know if I'd say it's the most crazy thing we caught, but it's certainly towards the top of my list.
Yeah. Yeah, that was nuts. But yeah, and locations differ. Like sometimes, you get more activity when there's more people. Sometimes you get more activity when there's less people.
Yeah.
It just varies. But public ghost hunts are definitely a way to um get your feet wet and figure out if this is for you or not. If you go on a public ghost hunt, you go running out the building when something happens, then this
Maybe,
probably isn't for you.
maybe not your thing. But
Yeah,
again, like I just wanted to bring that up because we've said multiple times that one of the things we want to see more of is just a larger paranormal community. And
definitely.
I think if people going on public hunts and kind of getting used to it and then eventually deciding like, hey, I want to do this more, I think that's great. The bigger the community gets, the more evidence we can all find, the further and further this kind of stuff grows. And like,
Yeah,
I think one of the coolest things would be if we're just on an investigation and someone comes up to us and goes, hey, you guys told me to go on a public hunt and now I'm here investigating ghosts too. That's
right.
awesome. Like that's the kind of community stuff that I think makes a community special, so to speak.
Well, and just to throw this out there, because this is an idea that I've been tossing for a while. But if you are interested or if you're interested in investigating, keep your eye on the channel, because there may come a point in time where we run a contest to invite one of the viewers to investigate a location with us.
Oh God.
So that is going to be coming. Um, I'm not going to give any more information than that, but it is going to be coming. So keep an eye on the channel. If you're interested in investigating, there will be an opportunity that you'll be able to join us at a location and investigate with us.
So
If that becomes popular, we may do that a couple times a year. We'll see what happens.
I just want to everyone who's listening or seeing this, L's in the chat because this is the first I heard about it. But
I
I
have
mean,
a lot of ideas that I haven't stated publicly yet, but
hey,
that
you
is
and
one
I
of
are idea people, but
yeah.
like you like to play
So
your cards closer to the chest. I like to go, hey, let's do a podcast, and here we are.
right.
Yeah.
But
For
but
wait, hang on. I gotta plug this. Please watch or listen to the podcast. This is my baby. This was my idea. So let me prove Dad that I was right. Let me prove to him I was right.
but
I'm helpful.
but seriously, keep your eye on the channel, because there's going to be an opportunity coming up where you will be able to join us on an investigation. I'll work out the details. Obviously, you'll be responsible to get to the location, but there will be that opportunity.
Are we gonna
And
buy them lunch?
well, we don't even eat lunch when we investigate. So what do you mean?
That's a good point. Oh, okay. Let's add that to the taxing part. We usually don't eat for about 15 hours.
All right.
Just 5-hour energies and energy drinks, baby. Let's
Right.
go.
No, we will make an event out of it, obviously. But that opportunity will be coming. So if you're one of our viewers, keep your eyes out, because we will be running a contest at some point to invite you on an investigation.
We're gonna run a contest.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And I'll even throw this out there right now. If you win the contest and you join us on the investigation, you will be one of the very first people to own your own Paranormal Task Force shirt.
So they would be the first person outside of the task force to own their very own Paranormal Task Force shirt.
That's correct.
Okay, hold on. I got a shout out. Dylan, if you listen to this, that's you.
Right. So
He wants a shirt.
keep your eye out for the keep your eye out for that, because it'll be coming. With that, now that we left that cliffhanger out there,
What's our last pro?
Our last pro is skill development. For me, this is an important pro, and I know I see your face, but you gotta listen.
Okay. I think I'll let you cook, but
if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't be improving my skills at video editing. I wouldn't be improving my skills at audio analysis, research, documentation. While we don't think about it, through paranormal investigating, we are developing skills that can be used in other aspects as well.
He cooked. He's not wrong. I think definitely for you, like, you've picked up a whole bunch. Like you said, I think the video editing thing is huge, because we've talked about it before, but if you look at the Hornet to now, like, our videos, there we go. Our videos are on basically a different level than they were. And in a year's worth of dad teaching himself how to edit, that's not bad. Yeah. I would say I definitely picked up some editing skills, but I am not an editor. I sit with him during the editing. I will credit myself as a producer, because I go, yeah, I think that part's better if you put it over here. But that's my big contribution, besides the idea guy.
But yeah, I think skill development is a big pro. And that's just my experience with it.
I mean, I think the skill development is very important, especially the things that you can translate outside of the investigating. But even if we talk about our investigating skills, I think we're way better than we were a year ago.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
We how do I put this? We actually know what we're doing to an extent.
We're still not professionals, but
no, we're hobbyists, if you want to call it that. I prefer amateurs, but
right.
Even then, like, I remember some old investigations where we'd be like, oh, you got to ask it yes or no questions. We'd sit there and debate on what kind of questions we were supposed to ask instead of just asking the damn question.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's skill development. That's an unexpected one, but that was good. You cooked.
So with that is our list of pros and cons for paranormal investigating.
If you agree, disagree, you have any other pros and cons, maybe you're a amateur hobbyist as well, drop it in the comments. Let us know. Hit us on all of our different socials, because I realized that we goofed. For 2 weeks, we have not plugged our socials on the podcast. Can you believe that?
I can believe it.
Yeah. That's my job.
We're amateurs.
Obviously, YouTube is probably the place you'll find us the most, but we are on YouTube. We are on TikTok. We are on Instagram. We are on X. We are on Spotify now. We're on Facebook. Wherever you listen to your podcasts, wherever your favorite podcasts are, you'll find us. We're there. Yep. And then if you really want to go the boomer route, and by we, I mean he, is on Facebook. as the Paranormal Task Force. So you can find us there too.
Yes. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and end this podcast and go ahead and give out any last minute plugs you got.
The El Cortez, through all the editing, has turned out to be a very surprising investigation with some activity that I was certainly not expecting. Go watch it. Go like it. Share it with your friends. Go watch Queen Mary. I think episode 3 is the one that's in the lead right now, but Gates of Hell just overtook Queen Mary again, and it makes me laugh every single time. But no, it's episode 2. Sorry. Queen Mary episode 2. The only reason I know is because it's got my face on the thumbnail. So go watch Queen Mary episode 2. Just go peruse the playlist. Throw it on while you're cooking dinner or something like I do sometimes, and enjoy the content.
Definitely. So with that, until the next podcast, we will see you guys later.
We are the Paranormal Task Force. Bye-bye.